Now, I'd like to introduce Barbara London. Barbara is a curator, writer, and professor who found the video exhibition and collection program at the Museum of Modern Art, where she was a curator between 1973 and 2013. She first met Paul Kim in the early 1990s, several years after her first trip to Korea. Since then, they remained close friends, neighbors. Barbara?
So, honorable ambassadors, Mr. Cho, the family of Po Kim, and the wonderful friends who are here in the room. So as Mr. Cho said, in the mid-'80s, with a very modest grant, I made a trip to South Korea. I went to research contemporary art, and I was captivated by the artists I saw and met and the very complexities of the culture. So I was here in New York a few years later. My phone rang. The caller asked whether I would write a text for a soon-to-be published catalog on Po Kim's paintings. So my answer was I first had to meet the artist and had to see the work. So living not so far from Po, I trundled over to Lafayette Street wondering who would be there when I got off the elevator. There was this slight man with twinkling eyes, and of course there was Charlie, his hyacinth macaw. There was a chorus of at least a dozen other raucous birds being shushed by the ever-gracious Sylvia Wald. I have to say, it was love at first sight. Poe's supersized paintings roared with color and life. I saw lush vegetation, beautiful like the flowers here, birds, Charlie and his other family members, and exotic creatures, some of which we saw in the paintings cycling through before. But I had to think, why were there bars resembling a zoo cage or maybe a prison cell? So sitting with Poe up on his building's roof overlooking Lower Manhattan, he told me about his life. So we sipped late afternoon tea amid his medley of roses, orchids and berries, and the very gentle sound of a bubbling fountain. I couldn't imagine how this very slightly built man was able to tend to this acre-sized garden up in the sky and still find time to paint. So then I came to see over the years Poe's energy and determination. They were truly limitless. Of course, I wrote the text, and Poe and Sylvia became good friends. And actually, my husband Henry once, when we were visiting them, had the rare experience of Charlie jumping up on his lap. He didn't peck. He actually kind of sat there. So we were happy. We thought we were part of the family. So we enjoyed, over the years, many, many dinners, lively conversations with Poe and Sylvia about art, music, books, our travel. They were voracious in their interests in everything that was going on. I have to tell you a little anecdote. In 2011, we had a date the night of Hurricane Irene with Poe. Our plan was to do a barbecue in our neighbor's backyard. Henry bought ribs, and the gale winds started. I called Poe and I said, "Are you on?" He said, "Yes, if you are." So we got the car, packed Poe in the car, drove a few blocks north. Henry grilled outdoors under the umbrella. We sat down to a dinner as rain really pelted the windows, and we safely delivered our very frail friend back home afterwards. So this is, I think, true to Poe. He was ready to take on anything. So to me, I'm sure Poe, at this very moment, has a glorious new garden up in the sky. I'm sure Sylvia has ushered him in. And I bet right now they're both painting and they're drawing and they're sharing lots of new experiences. So it's that joy that he gave all of us that we'll remember, and he really touched our hearts and touched everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. Thanks. Now I'd like to introduce John Pear, one of the best-known sculptors today. He's formerly a professor at the Parsons School of Design and the Pratt Institute. He was a close friend and colleague to Paul Kim. John?
Feels like an electric chair. I'm sorry. When I heard that Paul Kim had passed away, I had just an instantaneous image in my head of Paul Kim walking away in the snow, but not leaving any footprints. And he had that kind of demeanor. He I think did a lot of things inwardly, and only some people were privileged to actually experience or see what he did. I met him first in 1960, and every time I mention 60s, I get so excited about New York in the 60s with all the artists, not only in the visual arts, but in dance and music and in writing. And I was in my third year at Pratt, and I was majoring in industrial design, and I just couldn't see myself continuing. So I thought, well, maybe I should drop out and go to Europe or something. I had no money to do that, but it was a fantasy. And but I did have a 4-year scholarship, so I was even willing to throw that away. But the instructors kind of helped me out by saying, well, why don't you do what you want to do and paint and draw and sculpt. And so that's what I did, and I ran into a teacher, Edwin Ruda, who was an abstract painter, and I could tell that he was really concerned about me. He wanted to help, but he wasn't quite sure how to help or what the problem was. And I just remember him saying, I'm looking for the truth, and I'm looking for the truth, and I was trying to figure out what is the truth he's looking for, you know? And he said, well, I can't help you, but I think my friend could, and he arranged for me to meet Paul Kim, who at the time was one of the pioneers who had a loft on Chambers Street, and he was vigorously painting away, and he invited us to dinner, and I was just, what can I say, not surprised. It opened my eyes. It had this wonderful space, an entire floor-through loft, full of his paintings, and he was showing me his latest edition, which was a bathroom. And his first wife pointed out, you know, look at this bathroom. I have to live with this, and when she heard about my problems trying to decide between design and fine arts is that don't become an artist. And Po Kim just smiled and didn't say anything. But I looked around and I thought, you know, this is like a blueprint of what I want to be. And although verbally I was hearing his wife saying, you know, don't become an artist, inside I was thinking, this is exactly what I want to do, to have a space to work and enough living space to take care of my daily needs. And I didn't know what truth was, but I had a sense that his work was coming close to truth. And I was really proud that there's a Korean artist who is part of the kind of muscular art scene at the time. I think especially the abstract artists were kind of macho, and if you belonged to one of them, you know, that was a big thing. And it was obvious that Po Kim was one of them. He was carrying his weight, searching for the truth in his work. So a few years later, a few other Korean artists came. One was Kim Hwan-gi, who turned out to be one of the most important Korean contemporary artists, and Kim Chang-yeol. And I remember how brave I thought these people were. They had no money, and they gave up what they had in Korea. Hwan-gi was a dean at Hongik University. He gave all that up, and they're living in an apartment in 73rd Street, and day by day their funds were running low, and apart from you know, trying to do great works of art, you have to somehow get by each day, you know, have something to eat, have a place to sleep, have a place to work. And for someone who is already past middle age, having a job was not an easy prospect. And one day he said, Hwan-gi said, I got a job, you know, painting neckties. And who do you think got him that job? It was Po Kim. And so now this is like 50 years later or so. I was having dinner with Kim Chang-yeol. He's a very successful painter of specialties, the water drops. They look so real. And we were talking about the old days, and we talked about Hwan-gi being so excited about painting neckties, and Kim Chang-yeol said, I did the same thing, you know. And by the way, I started painting water drops, you know, when I was painting the neckties. So he was able to make a whole career out of this small gesture. So I think in a very quiet, gentle way, almost like an angel, Po Kim showed up when he was needed, and he left a very important mark on all of us. I certainly have to say thank you, Po Kim.
Thank you, John.